Hi everyone, I'm Associate Professor Sarah Weiss, and welcome back to my balcony for this next Research Skills Primer, Case Studies. So for the next few moments, let's set aside any distractions, find a comfortable seat, and let's get some tips and hints to help you manage case studies. In my experience, case studies are an often used and really terrific method for helping students to apply and truly understand the various theoretical concepts, which are often abstract and a bit obtuse. There's some kids going to the museum. They're very excited. I hope that you are this excited about learning about case studies. So with case study learning, one of the things I find though is that we take for granted that students know how to engage with the case studies. And in today's Research Skills Primer, I'm going to give you 3 tips which come from my very dear colleague, Professor Janine O'Flynn at the Australia-New Zealand School of Government. 3 tips on how to really tackle case studies. So what's Janine's formula? And I give Janine all credit for this. How do you get the most out of cases? She says there are 3 phases of case study learning. The first is individual preparation, so the responsibility is on you. The second is working in a small group, and the third step is then bringing back those small group ideas into the larger group. So we're really doing a stepwise learning process. Now, all of this learning and how much you get out of a case really does depend on you and your individual preparation. So as we start to introduce case studies for the remainder of this course together, you've got a lot of responsibility and we really need you to pull your weight. So for each case study that you have, whether it's a video or whether we give you something written, what I need you to do is to commit to spending 15 to 20 minutes with that case. Now that might mean that you only skim read a document that's provided. That's okay. And Janine has some really good tips on how to do that successfully and get the most out of the case. Ideally, you'd be reading the whole thing, but if nothing else, commit to 15 to 20 minutes, read the opening paragraph, and jump to read the ending paragraph. Ask yourself, okay, who is involved in this case? What is happening? What is the critical issue? Why does this issue matter within the context of my current studies? And when are these things occurring? So if nothing else, pretend you're a journalist and ask yourself about the case, the who, what, why, and when questions. It's a great idea if a case document includes charts or graphs to skim those. Often those are going to provide highlights of the information being discussed. Review the subtitles, and we've talked about this a little bit in our own academic writing skills research primer. Subtitles are a great way to signal what's important. You can also just skim read and note down some questions. So it's a really good idea not just to note down major points from the case studies, but also any questions that you have. If you can commit as an individual to spend 15 to 20 minutes on each case study, whether it's videos or a written document, and follow these few steps, we're going to have a better discussion together. And that's where small group work comes in. So we're going to have in our live online discussion forums, we're going to use those Zoom breakout rooms, and we're going to ask you to come prepared. So be ready to discuss the cases, have your questions written down, have your key points, your who, what, why, and when, and stick to any time limit given, okay? Also, when you go into those small breakout rooms, I'm really going to ask you to work together to be good facilitators and make sure that everyone gets to have a say and to comment on their ideas on the case. So that'll be small group discussions in our live online discussion forums. And then part 3. So in part 3, we're going to take your ideas as an individual. They will have been shaped through your small group discussion where you're going to work to make sure that everyone in your group gets to have a say. And then we're going to bring it all back together into a large plenary group through the live online discussion forums. And we're going to discuss, based on your group discussions, based on your individual level engagement, what key issues did you identify in the case? What key questions do you now have now that you've looked at the case yourself and you've discussed it with colleagues? What would you like to ask the rest of the group? What did the evidence tell you? So when we talk about case studies, we really want you to focus on the evidence within the case and try to figure out what's going on, taking the concepts and theories from the course and applying them to make sense of this real-world case. And finally, what were the alternatives in your discussion? Surely you didn't all agree on the interpretation of the case. So what were your discussion areas where you had differing ideas? And indeed, where might you disagree? What does that tell us about the complexity of the particular policy issue being engaged in that case? We'd also like in that large group discussion to then really try and make sense of the whole thing, remembering that especially with cases, there are no right or wrong answers, but we'll attempt to combine a summary of the main takeaways of the case. So that's it from me for today. I really hope that you'll find this way to approach the case studies that we have together in this class really helpful, and that it's also a way that you can use to address any case studies that you might have in other classes that you take. So just remember the 3 steps for tackling case studies, and we'll see you on the internet.